and there's still time.
Saturday afternoon and I'm drinking with the guys, thinking of the dice with slugs and your lovely eyes.
Whoa, beat me! Whoa, beat me down! Whoa, beat me! Houston Dynamo! Oh, Houston Dynamo! Oh, Houston Dynamo! Oh, Houston Dynamo! Follow me, don't follow me. I've got my spine, I've got my orange crush. Color me, don't color me. I've got my spine, I've got my orange crush.
Which I've lived in Houston on and off from 1973 to 1991, and I feel pretty confident saying it stinks.
It was bad news.
Well, hello there, friends in podcast land. You're listening to episode 52 of There's Still Time, the AFTN podcast. I'm Michael McCall.
And I'm Steve Pounder.
And we're bringing you another one of our post-game podcasts after the Whitecaps 2-1 victory over Houston Dynamo. So our second post-game podcast of the new season, and a second Whitecaps victory at home.
Yeah, fantastic victory, 2-1 victory over the Houston Dynamo. It was a game where they pushed forward quite a bit. Morales was fantastic in the middle. He earned the man of the match. He was my man of the match as well. And the team really clicked together. There was good chances. And they, although they allowed quite a few shots to Houston, they weren't really under pressure too much over the whole entire match.
No, I mean, it was a battle of the unbeaten teams. 2 of the 7 that were unbeaten in MLS going into this weekend's games, and Whitecaps still unbeaten. And I mean that's just fantastic. If at the start of the season, I think if you had said to every Whitecaps fan, after the first month, first 4 games, the Caps are going to be unbeaten, 2 wins, 2 draws away from home, you would have gladly bitten someone's hand off for that.
And I totally agree with you there. And to think of it, too, that this team is still... And I think the reason why they're struggling is they're still gelling. Everybody's not on the same page. And it's just would be really amazing to see what this team would be like when they're on the same page and they're playing together. And even right now, without being together for so long, only 4 games in, they're really connecting well in the midfield, at least at home.
So what we're going to do in this episode is we're going to pick over the bones of the game, look at the goals, look at some of the players that stood out, some of the players that maybe didn't stand out so much and reasons why. We're also going to hear from both dressing rooms. We've got audio from Carl Robinson, Dominic Kinnear, and a few of the players from both sides. So let's get into the guts of the game. 3 goals altogether. From a Whitecaps point of view, I think it was excellent that finally, for the first time this season, the Whitecaps came out strong early on. They got a really good chance in the 12th minute, a fantastic passing move that led to Darren Matic's blasting over the bar. He did well, but he just could not get his foot on top to get it under the bar.
It went off his shin, I think, on that one.
But I thought he did well there. But then 2 minutes later, Caps take the lead. Another great move, some more great work from Pedro Morales, and we'll discuss some of Morales' sublime balls later on in the podcast. But what a great goal, and another goal for Jordan Harvey, goal machine.
Yeah, Jordan Harvey picked the right time to. And I think the thing is the reason why he was so open is because he made that run into the box. The central defenders were obviously probably going after, Maddox and Miller. So they were, at that point, Harvey was able to make a run into the box and nobody was able to pick him up. He made a nice finish on that ball too that O'Brien was able to head down. But let's go back a little bit too on that play. Morales with a fantastic cross into the box. It was a one-touch volley cross, whatever you want to call it. It looked so perfect, and it hit O'Brien right in the head, where O'Brien just had to basically direct it down to the ground.
Yeah, and it was O'Brien's first assist for the Whitecaps since he came to MLS, and it's something that, for me, that's been the only thing that's really been lacking from O'Brien's game since he joined the Caps. I've wanted to see more of his aerial threat, and he did well to nod that down. Brilliant ball, though, from Morales. So, I mean, let's talk about Morales just now. Carl Robinson said after the game that he was a joy to watch, and he was today. Some of those first-time passes that he was doing, and just the balls that he was stroking around the pitch, and just first time, just getting the ball, hitting it. And I think, I put this out on Twitter, I think that as they've got more time to work together, Miller and Morales are going to be a really formidable force for the Whitecaps. They seem to be players that are at the same level. They know where the passes are going to be, and we've discussed this before in the podcast, that this is what kind of left Kenny a little bit frustrated at times last season, is that he knew where he wanted to play passes, and other players in the team just didn't have the footballing brain. Morales is that kind of player as well, and now that you've got the two of them with the same kind of footballing brain, I think as they get more comfortable and as they get more minutes under their belt together, that's going to be really exciting for the Whitecaps.
And another thing Robinson said about Morales was that he makes players around him better. And maybe other players might not know where to be, but he knows where the other players are going to be, and he's making them look better. He's finding Maddox on the run. He's finding Kofi. He's finding Tybert making runs into the box. Obviously Miller. And I think the connection between Laba and Morales really worked well today too. Laba had a really good bounce back game where he was in his kind of a zone where he was just anything Bonilla Garcia brought into the middle of the pitch, Laba was able to take away and then move it back up the field.
Yeah, Laba did well today, and playing alongside Gershon Kofi, I guess one of the first things we should talk about is Carl Robinson made a switch to the lineup. He didn't go for what's kind of become his traditional 4-2-3-1. He went for a 4-4-2 diamond, and it seemed to work really well. Were you surprised that he made that switch? He said that he'd kind of made the decision to do that on Thursday, and you'd kind of got a little bit of an indication of that from what you'd seen at training. Yeah,
they were switching back and forth from the two formations, but they were really concentrating on that one. It really worked well for Morales, because Morales was able to get more room on the pitch because they were able to split Maddox and Miller a little bit wider, which forced the defenders to be a little bit wide, so they wasn't able to clog up the middle at all. So I think that was that reason why it was so effective in this place. It's not going to be effective every game, but against Houston, who Robinson also mentioned, it caught him off guard for the first 30 minutes because they weren't expecting it, and it definitely was effective for them.
As I said, we'll talk about some of the individual players later on in this podcast. Let's look at the second half and the goals in the second half, and then we'll hear from the dressing rooms. Houston came out for the second half, kind of all guns blazing. They were really pushing. They were looking a lot more lively, but the Caps' defence held firm, and then went up the pitch. Darren Mattocks went on a really good run, won the penalty, and it was a clear penalty. He kind of turned Kofi Sarkodie inside and out. Sarkodie fell over and tried to do the kind of veteran move of like bringing his arm round to kind of put off Mattocks, but he caught the ball. Referee pointed to the spot. I think if he hadn't done that, Mattocks was clear through on goal. Whether he would actually have put the ball in the back of the net, we'll never know. But Caps got a penalty. Kenny Miller buried it. Off celebrating, turns round, wait a minute, retake. Steps up, cool as anything, reburies it. 2-0 Whitecaps.
Yeah, it was an effective goal at that point. Houston did come out in the second half and played well. They were getting some chances. They weren't obviously able to bury them, but it was a good timing of Maddox making that run, taking Sarkodie completely off balance, and great on Miller to not do the same thing. And obviously, I think the first one he lobbed into the back of the net, kind of chipped it, and the second one he just buried it, similar to the way he scored his goal against New York in the first game. And then in the 75th minute, the Houston Dynamo were able to get back in the game when, off a free kick, Brad Davis sent it in, and it found a big guy like Ricardo Clark in there. He was able to nod it in. It brought the game a little closer, but for the last 15 minutes or so, there was very little to do. Houston wasn't able really to get the ball close to the net. Let's talk about the goal that they allowed. First of all, it came like Andy O'Brien in the post-game interviews was saying that, was it really a foul? But if you look at it that way, Jay DeMerit there was a couple times too. There was one time earlier, but Jay Demers wasn't necessary for him to go up like that when you're up by 2 goals and be so aggressive when the ball is being forwarded in and it's like about 40 yards away from the pitch. Like I find like he's sometimes way overly aggressive, and it hurt them in this case because it gave Brad Davis a chance to send it in, and it brought the Houston Dynamo within 1.
Yeah, it's always disappointing to lose a goal, especially when it's a game where you've been really comfortable. But apart from that, the Whitecaps were pretty comfortable. I mean, the defence held firm. Beitashour again had a quiet game in a going forward kind of capacity, but he played really solid at the back. Thought Andy O'Brien was excellent. He was just fantastic throughout. Jordan Harvey, he was getting up the pitch a lot more today than he did before, but against a really dangerous Houston attack, Whitecaps defence held firm.
Definitely. I think Harvey, there were some times when he looked like a second striker up there, and Miller was playing the left back position, so it was very interesting to see where that was going. The only other issue I saw with that hurt the team a little bit, and put Vancouver under a little pressure, was that they seemed to give a lot of crosses, corner kicks. They gave up a lot of corners.
Well, yeah, the early moments as well. Houston forced a couple of corners, and they kind of had the defence scrambling in those opening minutes.
Yeah, so that was the only other issue I have, but obviously they didn't allow a goal on a corner. It came off a free kick, so I guess we could pick on it, but I think it was a good 2-1 win.
So before we look at some of the individual playing performances today, let's hear from the Whitecaps dressing room. So we're going to hear first from Carl Robinson, then Kenny Miller, a little bit from Pedro Morales, and Andy O'Brien.
I think we played very well. I think we got the result we deserved, but we showed a lot of heart and character in today's performance.
Pleased with Pedro in the diamond tonight?
He's a joy to watch, isn't he? He really is, and I think he's a joy to play with as well, listening to the guys in there. And I said he makes players better around him, and that's certainly what he did today. But he just gives us a different dimension in our team, and when he's on the field, we play a little bit more. We can still play more at times, but for credit to Houston, after about 30 minutes, they decided to press us and make us kick it. So we'll go back to the drawing board on certain things because I want to try and build from the back. We've got a little team, a small team in relation to the physicality compared to Houston. So, we'll analyse that and we'll work on it, but, we'll continue to build.
So how important was it to remain undefeated early in the season?
It's confidence for the boys in there, and like I said, I'll back them every single day of the week as long as they give me that effort, that determination that they showed today, especially in the last half an hour. We conceded, and we're going to concede goals, but it's about how you bounce back, and we didn't look under any pressure. They put giant after giant on, and they're a big physical team, they were putting bigger players on, I was putting smaller players on, so I had to speak to Purty and say, are we doing the right thing here? But I thought we could catch them on the counter. It was the right decision because we won the game, so we'll look at that. But like I said, I'm proud of the guys.
How would you sum up your first month in charge?
Very nice. Yeah, very nice. It's been interesting. It really has. It's not always going to be like this, and I know that. So I'm going to take it in my stride. I enjoy the evening today. It's my daughter's birthday tomorrow, so I'll enjoy that. It's been a special weekend. It's going to be a special weekend for me, so I'll enjoy it. But I'm sure I'll have tough times here, and I'm sure I'll be sitting here after defeat, trying to be positive and things like that. And I won't change the way I am. But most importantly, I'll back those boys in there if they perform like that week in, week out.
It's another fantastic performance, and the team's building. I think today especially we saw a little bit of grit and determination against a good team. We were physical and they were going to put a lot of balls into our box, and we defended well and obviously came away with 3 points, which makes these 2 road points a lot better, I think. After the first day of the season we set our stall out about how we want to play. Yeah, the 2 road performances weren't quite up to the same standard, but they were grit and determination. We're not going to play fantasy football every week and create a lot of chances and score 4 goals every week, so sometimes you're going to have to dig deep, you're going to have to defend well, and if it means an ugly draw or an ugly win, then you take that. So that says 8 points out of 12 is a fantastic start, and 100% record at the start of the season at home is a great start for us.
How much do you think playing in the Diamond helped you out there and your teammates?
Sí, la verdad que en lo personal me siento muy cómodo jugando así. Podemos tener quizás un poco más la pelota en el medio campo. La verdad que cualquiera de las formaciones del equipo yo creo que ha funcionado muy bien de las dos formas que hemos jugado.
I feel really comfortable playing in that position. It allows us to keep the ball, but the truth is, any position that we decide to line up with, we're comfortable. We'd like to move the ball. So.
How big of a battle is it going against such a physical team in Houston?
Yeah, very much so. I think I've watched the first 2 games that they've played, and they're a great combination up front and the wide players that they have. But I thought that we nullified the ball getting to them too much, and that's credit to the boys up front, which is the first line of defence, and the guys in midfield.
Andy, where did that shot hit you in the first half on the cross?
It's the first time I've been lost for words, probably bang in the middle.
So that was Andy O'Brien, obviously answering a very sensitive question at the end there, or was sensitive during the game.
Yeah, I wish I had gone into the home dressing room. I was in the away one, as we'll hear later on. Because my first question to him, if he came up for the scrum, was going to be, Andy, how's your balls?
Yeah, well, it would have been just as awkward as it was there when you were there. He was asking it.
It would have got a laugh. He'd have liked that.
So Andy O'Brien, I thought he had a solid game, 4th straight game. I honestly don't see a point where he puts a foot wrong at any of these games. He seems to be so solid at the back. I know Robinson wants to rest him. I personally hope they don't have to, because I worry about the team when he's not on the pitch.
Yeah, I'm the same. I mean, I had him probably. I haven't given this too much thought yet, but I would probably have him in my top 3. Definitely one of my men of the match today. He just marshalled that back line so well. Now, there was some things that people at the game, people watching on TV might not have seen, but there was a couple of instances today where the ball had been cleared and it was a Whitecaps attack, and he was like talking to Beitashour and actually showing him things and like kind of pointing in different directions. So even the older guys like Beitashour, he's helping out. And I just think he's a fantastic person to have around the Whitecaps. And you made an interesting point about that when we were talking about him during the game.
Yeah, I think this is my hope, that this guy, even after his playing days, sticks around to Vancouver as an assistant, as a residency, if that's something he's interested in, because I think he can impart a lot of knowledge on the young players. He's really good with young players, and he's definitely helped quite a few of them in training, in preseason training, and the training that's going on during the season.
We mentioned Beitashour earlier on, how he had a bit of a quiet game. Just wanted to read a tweet. We put out a request just to get a couple of tweets just to read out in the podcast today. We didn't want too many because obviously reading tweets out is a little bit dry. But Residual Image, at Residual Image on Twitter, he said it was another unspectacular game from Beitashour. But having said that, he thinks it was his best as a Whitecap. I mean, we were told he was the best right back in the league, and he is doing well defensively. I'm just expecting a little bit more from him than we've seen so far.
This one I will give a little bit of leeway to probably strategy. He was going up against a couple of guys like Brad Davis and Corey Ash, who are very dangerous, and maybe this was a game that they did not want to push him forward and pull out of position. So I think this one, hopefully he does have more moments where he's pushing the ball forward, but when you're going up against a guy like Brad Davis, who's very dangerous out wide, and Corey Ash, who's got speed to burn and everything like that, I think you want to be a little bit back a little bit. Just maybe why Jordan Harvey was so forward, because that side was not as a strong side, in the attack for Houston.
One of the other players in the defence that we'll have a quick chat about, David Ousted. How do you think he did today?
I think, again, another strong game for him. He really controlled the box. I think no fault of him on the goal itself. It was right in the place where the defender should have cleared it. There was, whenever the ball came into the box, whether it was up high, he basically sacrificed himself. Went up high, caught the ball. I don't recall him punching the ball as much. I think he mostly caught it. Maybe that's where the ideal position was for it, all the balls that were coming in.
Yeah, I do have a little bit of a worry though when the crosses come in. I don't feel 100% confident with him sometimes when he comes out, because I don't know whether he's just not commanding enough when he shouts, but there's a number of times where he seems to get in the road of another player, and it happened in the second half today. Him and Kenny Miller collided at one point when he was going for a ball. I don't know whether that's his fault for not making it clear enough that he's coming out, or the other player's fault for kind of getting in his road, but it's something that we kind of have to really watch going forward.
How about let's move up a little bit in the midfield here. We already talked about Morales and Lava. How about Kofi and Tybert? I thought they played decent. because you never saw very much attack from the wide side for the Houston Dynamo. I think they played well in what they were supposed to do. They didn't really offer much in the attack, but they prevented Houston from getting forward and doing any damage.
Well, Tiber, first of all. Now, I mentioned to you, on the way in today, I was listening to the pre-game show on Team 1410, and one of the points that they made was the fact that Tiber is a utility player might actually count against him, because he's maybe going to be the kind of guy that they want on the bench to bring on, because they can bring on a guy that can kind of cover in so many different places. But you felt that's the kind of guy that needs to be on from the start so that he can kind of move around the pitch and play in a number of different places.
And it allows them to change formations on the fly. Like you can put him, if you want to play 4-4-2 diamond, he plays in the middle of the midfield. If you want to play 4-2-3-1, he moves up to the wing spot. So you're able to have more flexibility in changing formations during the game. That's why I think you need. I'm not saying everybody should be a utility player on the field, but I think you need a one or two, or maybe just one, just so you have that flexibility to move back and forth. Because if Fernandez goes there, I know they might say he'd be able to play the midfield in a tip formation, but I don't think he can do that. I don't think his skill set fits that.
So moving to Gershon Kofi now. This was a great chance for Gershon to stake a claim for a starting spot. Nigel Reo-Coker out after his unfortunate bike rack incident. Gershon comes in, chance to make that kind of DM-CM role his, and I just don't feel he did enough today to earn a starting spot. I mean, I'm not saying he did bad. He didn't do bad, but he didn't stand out, and I think when you've got a guy that you're looking to replace that's a big name, someone like Nigel Reo-Coker, you have to do that little bit extra to stake your claim to that spot.
No, I totally agree with that. I think he played effectively. He didn't stand out or anything like that. But when you compare his performance today to what Reo-Coker had in every half except the second half of the New York game, I think he played better, and I think he deserves to keep playing if Nigel Reo-Coker, even if he is able to come back.
Couple of comments on Twitter about Kofi. At Whitecaps_fan said that Kofi was probably better than Nigel Reo-Coker in any game so far this year. Hard to argue with that. Corey Jackson at Whitecaps for Life, he said that possibly he hasn't done enough to earn that starting spot. He wasn't invisible or a liability though, the way Nigel Reo-Coker has been for the last two games. He made some mistakes, but he also had some decent stuff. He then followed that up by saying that, he kind of agrees that maybe he didn't do enough to earn that starting spot because he didn't stamp himself on the game by any stretch. So we'll just have to kind of see going forward. I mean, Nigel is expected to be back in the team next week against Colorado. I saw him today for the first time. That was the first me seeing his face in person, and it's really bad. I mean,
it was worse on Thursday.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the strikers then. They were obviously playing together up front. We talked a little bit about them, but Maddox and Miller, I thought Miller was Miller. There were times when he was up front, but a lot of times he was dropped in the midfield quite a bit.
Yeah, he played quite deep today. At least he wasn't playing too much in the wing, which we know for a fact from things that he was speaking about during the week. It's not his first choice place. He doesn't really like playing on the wing, and I thought he had a mixed game today. I mean, I didn't think he was spectacular. He did link up well, as we said, with Morales, and they had some nice plays, and he was kind of providing more of the kind of assists for goals than actually being on the end of them today. And I thought he looked a little bit gassed. I would maybe have taken him off for Mane, but they kept him on to the end. It was maybe a little bit strange, kind of running him into the ground. Possibly if Houston hadn't got that goal, they would maybe have withdrawn him. We'll not know, but I just thought that it wasn't his best game today.
And then Maddox, we talked about it again before. There were times when he just could not corral the ball, and I think personally he got lucky. I know he made a good run into the box, and Sirkoti touched the ball, but I think if Sirkoti had just played straight up with him, I don't think Maddox would have been able to get by based on what he's playing right now. And there were a couple of tweets that we had as well from Words Not Deeds, at Words Not Deeds. He goes, "Wow, Maddox has a touch of stone." And then Jay Duke, our own Jay Duke from the preview show, he tweeted out, "Maddox has the touch of a baby elephant." which I thought was pretty funny. And then Russell Beresford came in and said, that's kind of harsh on behalf of the baby elephant.
And you did find a really fun video on YouTube of a baby elephant playing soccer, and he had better touch than Mattix and Hurtado, I think.
I know, he kept the ball and ran with it.
A couple of other quick comments from Twitter. ABS at BadGonezYVR said he feels that they're showcasing Mattix for a trade.
And I think we mentioned that in the podcast during the game as well, that, you know, if he gets on a 2 or 3 goal run, is it maybe thinking of trading this guy and showing that he can actually do stuff. Yeah, and we talked about it during the game as well, that, you know, we were just having a regular conversation that if Maddox scores 2 or 3 in a matter of 4 or 5 games, that maybe they would trade him, because at that point his value won't be any higher, and maybe he goes back into this funk where he can't score a goal or get a touch on the net.
Well, the last tweet we'll read out on the show today, Colin T at Minamicho FC. Now, Colin's based in Japan. He said, "Is this as good as it gets for Mattix? An athletic player who can work hard but will never have a goal scorer's touch." Now, I don't think we can say he'll never have a goal scorer's touch, because he got a lot of goals in his first year and he recently scored for Jamaica. I just get the feeling, though, that I just can't see where his next Whitecaps goal is going to come from.
He's just got to keep working and trying to keep the balls down. Essentially, he sometimes when he gets in the box, in the box like he did there, he gets a little tight and he just fires the ball too hard, and that's the reason why these balls get skied over the net, even though he's only in the 6-yard box area.
By the end of the day, whatever we thought about how some of the players played today, the Whitecaps got a 2-1 win against a very good and a very dangerous Houston Dynamo side. Now, obviously, after the game, Whitecaps dressing room, cock-a-hoop. Dynamo dressing room, not so much. So we're going to bring you some audio now from head coach Dominic Kinnear. Bit of a tricky interview Dominic is when his team's lost, let's just say that. And we're also going to hear a little bit from the Dynamo's Scottish player. Doesn't sound Scottish because he was born in Oldham, but he is Scottish. So we're going to hear a little bit from Andrew Driver.
Well, I'm never happy when we lose. So, no, it's a tough game. They're a good team, tough place to play, hard game.
You're a really entertaining team to watch. A lot of the focus in the Eastern Conference is on, like, Toronto, the signings, and New York and Kansas City. Do you feel that kind of gives you an edge, that people aren't talking about you as much this season?
I really don't care what people are saying, to be honest. I think if you were to ask those teams what they think about us, they know we're a good team. So I really don't pay attention to other articles and people's opinions. I think we have a good team, and obviously their signings are going to make them a little bit more talked about. But that's fine. I think we know where we're at, and I think other teams around the league know that we're a good team as well.
You've got a great record, taking Houston to the playoffs year after year. What is it that you, well, obviously you don't want to say too much, but what is it that you do here that can get into the postseason where other teams seem to struggle?
Well, first off, I think we're good. That helps to have good players that are motivated and really don't like to lose and enjoy coming to practice and working hard every day. It's pretty simple, to be honest. I mean, we show up, we work hard, we try and play the right way, and hopefully Saturday's results go your way. So over the years, more results have gone our way than not. But for me, it all comes down to the players and their motivation. They're always want to win, and I don't know if that's 100% across the board in the league.
And Barnes and Bruin, do you think they are two of the best striking partnership in MLS?
Yeah, yes. I mean, there's not too many partners anymore. It's a lot of teams play with a solitary striker, you know. So I think when those guys are clicking and they're playing well, they're really a handful to defend against.
What's your thoughts on how the game went today?
I think obviously it's a tough place to come. You come away in this league and there's big variables. They have obviously the artificial surfs and everything. I think we started pretty slowly. We didn't really get a good foot in the game. But when we went behind, we went 2 behind in the second half. I think we showed a lot of bite and a bit of spirit to try and come back into it. So it's not all bad, but we just need to learn from it and go into next week and keep our heads up. Most of all, we still had a fairly decent start to the season, and it didn't go our way today, but we still put all the effort in, and we can be happy in a way. We just got to cut out the little mistakes that led to their goals.
So the Eastern Conference this year, it's like big battle. A lot of the focus is going on the teams like Toronto, who's brought in the players, and KC for winning it in New York. Yeah. Do you feel that kind of lets you guys kind of go under the radar a little bit? And
I think we kind of did last year. We obviously got to the conference finals. not a lot of people had much belief in us or anything, but that's what this team's like. We've got a group of guys. We've not got any real. Well, I think we're all stars, but you don't have the big marquee player. But you've got a team of people who work for each other, and with everyone's friends. There's no cliques in the dressing room. It's all a team effort, and I think that is we just get on with our job, and I think we get a little bit underrated at times, but we're usually there and thereabouts come the end of the season. So I think it's the same mentality for us this year, and we might not get any attention, but we just got to do our job and hopefully get back up in there.
So some thoughts there from Houston Dynamo head coach Dominic Kinnear and midfielder Andrew Driver. We're going to have more from the Andrew Driver interview later this week up on AFTN, so watch out for that. What we're hoping to do for a lot of this season is to bring you an interview with one of the opposition players just the week after the game, just doing a little bit something different and kind of just chatting about the rest of the league.
And we're going to try to make sure Michael doesn't just pick on the Scottish players. He goes and tries to diversify.
Oh, I'm kind of limited, although I am looking forward to when Adam Muffet comes with his sexy beard.
Oh, everybody knows that.
So we've not got much more to talk about in this podcast, but we kind of want to talk a little bit before we finish just about the Houston Dynamo and where they fit in the East. So I mean, I asked Dominic and I asked Andrew about how so much attention in the East this year has been given to Toronto with their big name signings. Kansas City because they won the MLS Cup last year, and of course New York always get attention because hey, they're New York, they have Thierry Henry. So I mean, Houston, as Andrew said, every year they kind of maybe catch people out a little bit and they get into the playoffs, they kind of go a little bit under the radar. I mean, Houston they're such an exciting team to watch. I've watched both their games at home this year, and I enjoy watching them. Some of the teams in MLS, when you see the schedule, you're like, oh, I don't know if I can be bothered watching this game. But there's a couple of teams I really enjoy watching. Kansas City's one of them. Houston Dynamo is one of them. And I find their games entertaining, especially their home games, because they just play such a good batch of football. And as we talked about last week, you talked about in the preview show, Barnes and Bruin are one of the most exciting partnerships in MLS. And as Dominic Kinnear said when I asked him about that, there aren't many actual partnerships in MLS anymore. There's a lot of lone strikers and there's not really tandems anymore. But I mean, Houston's got that. How do you see them doing for the rest of this season?
I think they're going to be a strong team. I see where, like, you know, Eastern teams are not going to fare well coming to the West and vice versa. So that I don't take this game into account like that. But I think they're a very strong team. They haven't made too many changes to the lineup. Their big issue, and I think it was prevalent today, is their center back pairing. I talked to Dustin Richardson. We talked on the previous show about him. He seems to have no issues with them. Thinks they're solid. I think they can be exposed, and it's going to be up to a guy like Ricardo Clark who will, you know, be able to protect them playing in front of them. So I think that's going to be the big issue for them. Other than that, I think they're really good on playing out wide, and they're good out top, and obviously they have a good keeper in Tally Hall.
And of course, we kind of have to quickly mention as well, like David Horst was losing it at the end of the match with the officials. So it's going to be interesting to see if he picked a card up for that or if it's mentioned in the referee's report. And Giles Barnes was good today, and I can't watch Giles Barnes without thinking he's just a codpiece away from taking the karaoke and singing Cameo's Word Up.
There definitely is a resemblance between the two. So before we sign off, one last thing we should talk about. We went to see another game this morning.
Yep.
Afternoon, or what did you say? It was a game of Vancouver Whitecaps U18s versus the San Jose Earthquakes U18s, a battle of MLS residency teams, academy clubs.
7-goal thriller.
7-goal thriller was going back and forth. I thought it was a fantastic game. And, you know, it just shows again that how quality these young players, the quality that these young players are playing at, and the touch and everything. You know, a lot of people are going to look at Pedro Morales. There were a couple instances where Marco Bustos looked like Pedro Morales there on the pitch, and obviously the influence of Pedro Morales is really coming on to these young attacking players
because Mark Weber did that article where, I mean, he was like, Bustos is looking up to him as a role model, and it's coming across.
Yeah.
So much first-time passing between the midfielders today. It was
they do that anyways. They've been doing that for years. But
True.
But it's the very deceptive plays that, like, the turn around and volley it into the box and everything, stuff like that. Really quick volleys, and I think that's where he's really going.
And we should give a shout out to the goal scorers. Kian Froze got 2. One was deflected, one was an absolute peach. Curled into the top corner. Well, maybe not curled, but it was like straight into the top corner. It was a beautiful diagonal finish. And there was a goal as well for Marco Bustos in the first half.
He chipped a beautiful... It was a great pass by Keons to him, and he chipped the goalie perfectly and got the dem off on the right foot.
And the third goal in the game, it came from Ali Musi. Kind of blotted his copybooks a little bit towards the end by getting sent off.
Yeah, and on that goal, Ali Musi, we just should mention that Sam Medukubi tried to take credit for the goal, but it clearly was Ali Musi scored. And then obviously we didn't get to watch the match because it started, and we would have missed obviously the Houston game, but the U16s were able to play to a 0-0 draw. Don't know who was in net. It was either Alward or Tressolini, so one of those two guys got the clean sheet there.
So I mean, that was a good unbeaten weekend for all 3 Whitecaps teams. So before we wrap up, just a couple of things to tell you to watch out for. On Monday, BC Soccer are doing their draw for the 2014 Provincial Cup. We'll be bringing you full coverage of that on AFTN. Tuesday, you will see the Whitecaps take on FC Edmonton in a friendly at Thunderbird Stadium, kicking off at 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
But just be aware that there might be changes to that, so just keep an eye on it.
Yep, times may change because Edmonton's schedule's been a little bit weird so far for the little trip here. They actually drew with UBC 1-1 at Thunderbird Stadium on Saturday afternoon. So that's it for another post-game show. Another Whitecaps win. Steve, just before we head off, tell everyone where they can find you online.
You can find me at WhitecapsBeat on Twitter, and obviously writing for AFTN. And we'd like to wish also a happy birthday to Mrs. Morales, Pedro's mother, who is celebrating today in Chile.
And I'll give a birthday shout out myself. A happy birthday to Carl Robinson's daughter. It's her birthday on Sunday, and she's going to have a very happy daddy. And being in his first month as Whitecaps head coach, and long may it continue. So I'm Michael McCall. You can find me on Twitter at AFTN Canada. Send us an email about anything about the show or the website, aftncanada@hotmail.com, and read all our stuff, AFTN, on Canadian Soccer News, aftn.ca. And you can also read some of my stuff on soccerly.com. So we'll be back midweek, we think, with another podcast after the friendly with Edmonton. So until then, thanks for listening, take care, and mon the Caps. Or should I say, mon the unbeaten Caps.
One day, I shall come back. Yes, I shall come back. Until then, there must be no regrets, no tears, no anxieties. Just go forward in all your beliefs and prove to me that I am not mistaken in mine.